That is our intro by Ball and Chain, and it's Wade Major back with
Tim Cogshow.
Mark is still Mark is back from Paris, but getting his life back in order, and we'll have him give us a full postmortem on his romantic life next week. In any case, Tim, Oscar nominations seem to go fairly according to plan. For the most part, all the films that we thought were going to be in the mix were in the mix.
Yeah, look, it's a less controversial year this year because the Oscars so white meme is not there. I think this is the first time I've said it all year.
Yeah,
I don't think I've other than to say that it's not there, which of course has to do with the amount of material in the pipeline.
Yeah.
That allowed things to be. So it'll be an interesting season.
I still think La La Land's going to run the table on just about everything.
It seems strong. I tell you what is interesting to me
because everyone loves it. Everyone truly loves it. Did you see the Saturday Night Live sketch?
No,
from about a week or two ago, where Aziz Ansari is getting he's in an interrogation room. And he's the guy who didn't think La La Land was the greatest movie of all time, right? And so, they come in and they really they just rake him over the coals. What the hell's wrong with you? It's fantastic.
How could you be American?
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. But, I think that pushes all the buttons the Academy likes. Look, in recent years, we've had Birdman and we've had The Artist. Anything that sort of scratches Hollywood's back and tells artists and actors that they're wonderful and filmmakers that they're amazing.
And it's a very likable story.
Yeah.
Told by likable characters, featuring some really astounding achievements by some very lovely young filmmakers. Yeah. Justin Hurwitz walking around, he did the music for most of the score. Excuse me, of course, Damien Chazelle walking around. These are just all lovely, young, fresh Hollywood filmmakers. They're all younger than my dude. I got sneakers older than these kids. Yeah. But they put a good look on Hollywood. They really do. They make Hollywood look like it's engaged and it's doing stuff and that it's not lingering in the past. Yeah. You gotta love it. I love those guys.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a fun run up to the awards. The thing that I always think of that now we get the nominations in early February, and we have the awards in late February. That's how this thing, or late January. We get the awards in late January, and we get the awards in late February. It's the January to February thing, and I'm thinking, wow, you remember how it used to be? We wouldn't get the nominations until, all the critics groups would still do December, but we wouldn't get the nominations until about the second week in February. And then the awards were late March.
Yeah, the spring, and you were well into the sort of spring movie season. Yeah. Didn't make it much better this way.
It does feel better this way. It's funny because the Oscar season used to be so long. Anyway. Yeah. So we got tons of stuff. We're not going to get through nearly all of it, but really quickly, because I'm not going to be able to do this next week, because Mark will just ride me like an ancient pony. I got a lot of classical music stuff here to make mention of. All of it courtesy of Naxos, who is always really wonderful to us, and we like to return the favor. And this stuff doesn't really show up on the radar for a lot of people. So if you love classical music, here it is. Here's my real quick blitz on this. Hermann Prey. The Schubert Song Cycles. This is from C Major on Blu-ray. Absolutely lovely. This has never been on Blu-ray before. If you love Schubert, like I love Schubert, and I do love Schubert, I learned piano and a lot of Schubert as a little kid, and I hated it at the time, but I love it now. Then we have Blomstedt conducting Beethoven's Symphony No. 9 with the Gewandhaus Orchestra. My German relatives will kill me if they ever hear me actually pronounce it that way. Anyway, the Symphony No. 9 on Blu-ray, there's just nothing better. DTS is just an absolutely amazing audio. It's really great. This was recorded live in 2015, state-of-the-art recording. You'll never hear a more rousing, live-sounding Blu-ray audio performance of the Ninth. At the Royal Opera House, from the Royal Opera, courtesy of the Opus Arte line, is Cavalleria Rusticana and Pagliacci. Nothing that I am even remotely familiar with. I did not get a really extended look at this, but for those who know that these are operas that you like, I am unfamiliar with them. They are out there. Then Gaetano Donizetti, one of the lesser-known opera figures, an opera known as Roberto Devereux. and this was the orchestra and chorus of the Teatro Carlo Felice. Pretty classic, rousing opera stuff here. This all kind of takes place around the court of Elizabeth, the Elizabeth I, Queen of England, and I followed it fairly well. It's interesting to see the Elizabethan world depicted in an Italian opera, I have to say that, but it actually works. And that entire thing actually is done again in a very different performance. This is Donizetti's Roberto Devereux, done by the orchestra and chorus of the Teatro Real de Madrid, and it's quite different by comparison. So if you want to sort of compare the two, you could pick them both up and get a sense of how the Italians do it versus how the Spanish do it. Just a lot of hot, temperamental Mediterranean stuff going on there. Arrigo Boito's Mefistofele. This is really interesting, weird postmodern stuff. This is what you expect from modern German opera. It's like it's like rock and roll Weimar Republic opera. It's crazy and eccentric and weird and completely unhinged. Also, Bruckner's Symphony No. 4 with Christian Thielmann of the Staatskapelle Dresden. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful performance. We always love listening to Bruckner. A fascinating performance of Hamlet with the Royal Shakespeare Company, done completely modern with a black cast. Really, really awesome. Just completely takes a whole new take on it, and it is still, of course, the Royal Shakespeare Company, Stratford-on-Avon. Performance recorded live right on the original spot, and it's beautiful. It just gives you a completely deeper understanding into what an amazing story it is, no matter what the context. George Balanchine's The Nutcracker, performed by the New York City Ballet. Beautiful, part of the Lincoln Center at the Movies series. This is on Blu-ray from C Major. It's just great. If you're unfamiliar with Balanchine's Nutcracker, it's just one of the great all-time beautiful performances. It's fabulous. And Verdi's La Traviata, also from C Major, always classic. This is staged by Rolando Villazon in a very interesting kind of semi-classic, semi-modern staging. Really, really nice there. And then lastly on Blu-ray, and then we have a few DVDs afterwards, El Público. Didn't really get into this, I gotta be honest. This is a little bit too postmodern. This is based on a play by Federico Garcia Lorca. It's kind of a weird ballet opera thing. It's the kind of thing that they make fun of on sketches like Sprockets. And then lastly, got a couple here from the Russian Ballet Collection on DVD only. The Nutcracker by the Bolshoi Ballet and Swan Lake by the Bolshoi Ballet. These are from Kino, and anything by the Bolshoi Ballet is absolutely wonderful. These are not HD or anything because these are from the 1970s. And therefore, shot on really ugly 70s video, but still worth checking out after the fact. And finally, even for people who aren't fans of classical music, this is really pretty awesome. Leonard Bernstein, Larger Than Life. This is the first real documentary study and look at the life and career of Elmer Bernstein that I've ever seen. And, people who don't, a lot of people, like I grew up, and you probably did too, Elmer Bernstein, the guy with the white hair who just so furiously conducted orchestras, and you just loved watching him just really get into it. There's so much passion. Nobody really, my generation doesn't realize what Bernstein was before I was born. Bernstein was a rock star in the classical world. A protege? He was,
I should say not a protege, he was a savant. He was
yes. He was a rock star in the sense of women flocked to him. He was the life of the party. He took over every party he went to. He lived the life of Mick Jagger.
They called him Lenny.
He lived the life of Mick Jagger in the middle of the classical world, and it really is. It's astonishing. And what a talented guy. He broke barriers. He was an amazing figure. So Leonard Bernstein, Larger Than Life from C Major. You got to see this. It really is. It's just fantastic. It's just absolutely fantastic. It is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful doc. With that, Tim, let's hit the new movies.
New movies indeed.
Oh.
So anyway, a friend of mine's full disclosure. A friend of mine's an executive producer.
Yes.
On this film that we're about to talk about.
Who I know as well.
Yeah. Anyway, USS Indianapolis, which is an actual naval vessel that experienced something interesting during World War II. This is one of those Nick Cage movies. You and I started talking about this.
There's like 30 of them a year now.
Yeah, and they sort of turn out, and they have these people in them. This is Nick Cage, Tom Sizemore, Thomas Jane. All of these people in this fairly large-scale naval war movie about the events on the Indianapolis. I don't know. Mario Van Peebles directing.
Sure.
Mario Van Peebles directing this movie. These movies kind of blow me away a little bit. I don't quite understand where they come from. I do not remember this movie having a theatrical release. It has Nick Cage on the cover here. And all of these people in it, but there they are. They happen. They're fairly large scale. They have fairly decent production values. It's not a very good movie. Despite the subject matter, the special features. I don't know. Talk about it a little bit. Where the hell do these movies come from?
This is how these movies come together. There are a lot of people out there that want to put money into movies, and they all sit in a Rolodex. And these agents and packagers, they just go through that Rolodex, and they call people up, and they say, "You want a credit? It's going to cost you $300,000, $500,000, $1 million too." And people say, "Sure, I got some cash lying around. Credit and red carpet would be nice. Do I get to meet Nick Cage?" Fair enough.
And that's what it is, right? There are these actors, these sort of once were movie star sort of actors. Certainly were once significant actors, sort of actors, and for a price, they will come in and act. It's like hiring an old rock star to come play at your kid's bar mitzvah or something like that. And it definitely happened, but it doesn't mean it was particularly good.
Here's a question I have for you. How long do you think we will wait, if this ever happens, before something happens in Nick Cage's career where he is rediscovered Travolta style and given a legitimate role in a major, possibly even a Best Picture winning film by a major director again? Will that ever happen? Will he ever be redeemed and come out of B-movie purgatory?
I know you don't have to go that far back to get Nick Cage to decent movies. Nick was in a really decent little indie a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact, called Joe.
He was great in Kick-Ass.
And he was great in Kick-Ass, of course, which is sort of like sort of size movie. And certainly you can get to A-list starring Nick Cage movies when you get back to Lord of War.
Yeah, you can.
Certainly adaptation. Actually, these are all a minute ago now. That I think about it, the numbers are popping up in my head. Some of these movies are 10 years ago, but certainly he's not 20 years on.
No, that's true.
From being a real kind of guy. He still looks good. I don't know. Maybe years ago, Sean Penn and Nick Cage got into it because Sean was very critical about some of the choices that Nick was making as an actor.
They go way back as friends.
They go way back. Kind of broke up their relationship there for a while. And I don't know. I'm starting to. At the time, I thought to myself, "Hey, Sean, shut up. Who are you to tell? You act over there in your corner of the room. I'll act over here." But, I'm thinking Sean might have been right.
I think he was, and but Nick also had some financial problems. Remember,
he had to turn around,
and had some weird. We forget he was. I mean, he was married for a moment to Priscilla Presley. Priscilla Presley. No, to
one of the Arquettes for a minute.
It was Patricia Arquette, but he was also married to Lisa Marie Presley.
Lisa Marie Presley, yes.
So we forget that Nick Cage and Michael Jackson share an ex-wife.
Yeah,
that's weird. Anyway,
in more ways than I can think.
Yeah. So, but he's got those marriages and those divorces, and he had some weird spending habits for a while. But I think it's not gonna be within the next 5 years, but I think within the next 10 years, somebody is gonna give Nick Cage. They're gonna throw him a bone, and he's gonna have a Michael Keaton kind of career renaissance.
Look, it's not him. Nick Cage can act.
He can.
Nick Cage can act. You just have to have a reason. You and I talked about him on the show a week ago or two. Look, in some movie that he was in with his brother.
It's not, when you see him be really bad in bad movies, it's not his fault. It's like that movie, the Bronx Bull, which we talked about on radio and here. That movie is loaded with absolutely first-rate great actors doing terrible work.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Sometimes it's just a sow's ear.
A hack director doing hack work on a hack story. So anyway, that's a Nick Cage movie. Not much there. The Monster, which is an interesting Zoe Kazan film. I like Zoe.
I love Zoe Kazan.
Scott Speedman and a few people who also sort of fell off the radar there a little bit. Anyway, this is a horror movie about some people who are out on a road trip. It's a dark road in the middle of nowhere. Car breaks down. And what do you think's on the road? Monster on the road. Got to deal with the monster on the road out in the middle of nowhere. I got to tell you, it's a lot of fun, and it's pretty neat. It's from the director of Strangers. It's on Blu-ray and in HD here. One special feature, a featurette called The Eyes of Darkness. This is actually a pretty intense and neat little horror movie. If you're into that kind of thing, I would suggest giving it a shot. I have Ouija, the original evil here. Talked about this movie on the radio program too. These Ouija board movies were actually pretty good little movies.
Yeah,
they're kind of neat.
Yeah.
Look, one thing you're not supposed to do with the Ouija board, you're never supposed to play with the Ouija board alone. There are like 2 or 3 instructions you get. You get a Ouija board. Don't do these things with the Ouija board. If you don't do these things, everything will be fine. What do these kids do? Everything you're instructed not to do with the Ouija board is what these kids do, and of course they unleash a pulse-pounding evil. Anyway, this is pretty neat. Deleted scenes, the making of, Home is Where the Horror Is, a feature commentary with the director Mike Flanagan. Again, if you're in the horror zone, if you're having some fun, these Ouija board movies are fun. This one, Ouija Origin of Evil, is a lot of fun.
You just want to smack kids around in these horror films.
Kids, read the box.
That's why. Did you ever see the comedy, the Final Girl?
Oh yeah.
See that? I just love that. It's one of the best written films I've seen in years because it takes
all those tropes.
It takes all the tropes and just turns them upside down and inside out in this weird fantasy. It's just fantastic. I got a couple of 4Ks here. Here are our square-jawed 4K movies of the week. So we got ourselves a Ben Affleck 4K and we got ourselves a Tom Cruise 4K. So Ben Affleck in The Accountant and Tom Cruise in Jack Reacher Never Go Back. The Accountant we talked about last week.
Of those 2 movies, the better one is the Tom Cruise movie. which I don't know why but it's weird.
Ben is just having a weird, like his gangster film was another one that
they live by night. Right now.
It's supposed to be in the Oscar mix and not even close. No. And they sacrificed promoting this because they thought that was the film. You know. I mean, an autistic accountant trying to take down the mob. Where's the...
Just about the goofiest storyline that you ever will see. And Anna Kendrick plainly having no idea. I'm watching this movie, and the one thing I know for sure is that Anna Kendrick has no more idea what the hell is going on in this movie than I do. I'm looking at her in every scene, and I can see it in her eyes. She's like, what's going on? You can see it in her eyes.
Thinking... I read the script. It didn't make sense then. I'm on the set. Makes less sense now.
The check cleared.
The check cleared. Anyway, J.K. Simmons collected a check. So did John Lithgow and Jeffrey Tambor. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I just wonder how these things come together, and I guess just
that's one of those things. Was that based on a book? I think that was based on a book.
I'm sure it probably was.
So you have some decent piece of material that maybe it was okay, and then you start piecing together your elements. And the next thing you know, you got Ben Affleck, and you got Anakin, and somebody writes you a check, and you make some dumbass.
The great discovery for me was that the Treasury Department has its own sort of little mini FBI. yeah,
which is out there looking around.
Weird. Anyway, and then the other 4K Jack Reacher Never Go Back. I feel pretty good about this.
I had a good time at that movie.
Yeah,
had a good time at that Jack Reacher movie. I sure did.
I kind of want more of these.
Yeah,
I got to be honest. I'm enjoying the character.
That one was kind of neat because
I like this better than the previous one.
Oh yeah. The complaint was that because I used to read those books.
Yeah,
and Tom Cruise doesn't in any way, shape, or form resemble Lee Charles.
Oh, not even close.
He's supposed to be 6'5", knock guys out with one punch. Tom Cruise is just remotely just wrong in every possible way to play that character. Yet he still pulls it off.
He absolutely pulls it off because he's Cruise. He inflates himself on that screen to fill the persona. Yeah, a lot of fun stuff here. A lot of great extras on this. Mostly featurettes. But you know what? I turn everybody to this to just say, if you want to understand why Tom Cruise continues to be our last movie star, just watch what he does. He is watching any Cruise performance is a clinic in how to be a movie star.
Yeah. How to get out of your own way. In that particular one, he lets the ladies have a lot of those scenes, fight scenes and stuff like that. The storyline. He's like, you know what, ladies,
absolutely,
go ahead and do it. Knock that guy
for sure.
out. Knock that guy out. I got American Pastoral here. Ewan McGregor's directorial debut. A commentary track on this with Ewan McGregor, which is the best thing about this DVD release, this Blu-ray DVD release. This movie did not work at all. Just didn't work.
And that's a tragedy because if there's an actor that I really would have rooted for having a directing debut, it would have been McGregor.
Yeah.
He's just one of my favorite actors. He's just a delight.
Jennifer Connelly, Dakota Fanning.
But he was trying. He was quoted early on as saying that he didn't feel that most of the novels by Philip Roth necessarily worked as movies, and he wanted to try to do something that worked. And I'm beginning to wonder now, is it because it's true, most of the Philip Roth movies, really, A Human Stain...
Human Stain didn't work at all.
And I'm just beginning to wonder, is it just because Roth... Yeah. Is it just because Roth is unadaptable? Is it because he doesn't... Because Roth as a writer it's very interior.
Yeah.
And I'm just beginning to wonder, is everyone just sort of beating their heads against a wall, trying desperately to wring some money out of a great novelist without realizing that maybe these novels just can't be made into movies?
And the thing of it, because I've heard Roth talk about there's a great PBS documentary about him and his novels, and he has a desire. He's different from most novelists in that he has a desire for his books to be made into good movies. He's actually waiting for it. He would like it to happen, as opposed to many novelists who don't want to go anywhere near Hollywood and all that. He's over there hoping and waiting and has his fingers crossed, and nothing.
Yeah,
just not happening so far as that's concerned.
That's too bad. I mean, it is nicely made, but it just narratively does not work, despite the really amazing cast.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. But Pete Hammond calls it a powerful and important film. Pete Hammond loves everything.
Go for it, Pete. Kevin Hart. Weird Kevin Hart movie. What now? This is a comedy concert film.
Yeah.
But it doesn't start as a comedy concert film, right? It starts as like an actual movie.
Well, he's trying to do a little bit of what Eddie Murphy sort of dabbled in, right? To make concert films that are more than just a guy performing, that sort of weave other things into them.
A bit of a narrative, some other characters. Halle Berry playing Halle Berry here, Don Cheadle playing Don Cheadle. There's a poker game. He has to go out and make 1,000 people laugh, and he fills the guy. He's very now. What's important here is that the comedy film is the concert film is funny. Yeah. Kevin Hart is funny. One of the best stand-up comedians, on-stage stand-up comedians. Today. Perfectly fine sort of, big movie comedic actor. Yeah. Juxtaposed against The Rock, against Ice Cube, against whoever it is. You can stand him next to any one of those guys. He makes it a little bit funnier. But he's a damn good stand-up comedian.
I have been laughing at Kevin Hart for so many years, and I'm so happy. I remember for the longest time he would pop, before he really, really popped, when he was doing commercials. He'd show up in like a Subaru commercial as the guy who's driving the Subaru over the mountain, going yee-haw, and you're laughing because he's just enjoying it way too much. And I just thought, gosh, I wish he'd get some better work. And he's finally popped, and I'm glad. But I would love to see him stretch and not just be that guy, the little comic relief guy
next to some guy.
I'd love to see him stretch and do a dramatic role because I know he can kill it.
You know what the burn is. And we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. Oscar nominations just came out together. All the movies that we talked about that we thought that we would be talking about now. There are a few where that didn't happen. Mr. Church. An Eddie Murphy movie.
No, absolutely.
Perfectly fine, sort of dramatic. And you and I had both been talking, Eddie, do it dramatic. So Eddie, what does he do? He goes and does a dramatic thing. It's a pretty good movie, too.
Yeah.
Nothing. No, nobody hated on it. It's not bad. It got reviewed fairly nicely.
People thought it was too saccharine, too sentimental, too predictable.
Yeah, all of which is true. Yeah. That happens there. Where are we going here?
Yes. The Light Between Oceans. Oh, my goodness gracious. Heavens to Betsy. Wow. So, for some reason, there are people out there, and this is unfortunate. This is one of the movies that has momentarily resurrected the Touchstone brand for Disney. the Touchstone brand really gets pulled out like 2 or 3 times a year now because for movies that Disney has certain brands now. They are no longer Touchstone Hollywood Pictures.
Hollywood Pictures,
no, that's gone. Now it's Marvel and Lucasfilm and Pixar and Disney, and then we don't really know what to do with that. It's kind of like a real movie.
Stick it in Touchstone.
Stick it in Touchstone. That's what they do now. So this is.
I always loved that Hollywood Pictures brand. By the way, that the Hollywood Pictures put out more fantastically engaging, popular, not particularly expensive, but well done movies across this all like late 70s through the middle 80s. Then I don't know where.
Yeah. So here's the thing. This is very much one of those kinds of things. Like, who's the guy that writes all the saccharine, lovey-dovey movies?
The Notebook.
That guy.
So the guy Nicholas Sparks.
Nicholas Sparks. So this is like drifting into this really maudlin Nicholas Sparks territory again. Poor Michael Fassbender. He's a great actor. He's been taking a few really lame roles like the Assassin's Creed, whatever.
Yeah. At least that was a paycheck.
Bank the money, man. Just bank the money, but please do a good movie once in a while. Anyway, he's a lighthouse keeper. Oh, and Alicia Vikander is his wonderful, sweet wife. Oh, that's fabulous. We know what's going to happen. By the way, neither of them are Australian. This film takes place in Australia. Neither of them are Australian. I don't know who was thinking that. Anyway, so we know where this goes, and there's a baby, and then there's all kinds of other horrible stuff that happens, and it just Rachel Weisz shows up, and she's this like bizarre, weird presence, and no. It's just, what a misguided effort. I'm sure the novel probably was engaging, but at a certain point, somebody in the room has got to raise their hand and just say, this is really taking on a very, very ridiculous veneer. Director Derek Cianfrance, who did Blue Valentine, was it, with Ryan Gosling?
And Michelle Williams.
Yeah. Very capable director, but really, really needs tougher material. This is not that tougher material, unfortunately. Anyway, Blu-ray and ultraviolet combo set, and not much by way of extras. So featurette stuff and a commentary. It's perfectly fine as far as extras, but not a great movie.
Yeah, this film here is interesting too. This is not exactly like that USS Indianapolis movie one would do. This is Operation Chromite, which was. It has to do with the Korean War, the Battle for Indochine, right? And there were all these sort of operations that were going on. General Douglas MacArthur was involved in them, and involved a whole lot of South Korean soldiers who were sent up north to go behind enemy lines to effect all sorts of things that they could do, so that General MacArthur could pull off the operations. And here's the thing about all of that: it didn't work. They all failed. I mean, technically speaking, they didn't fail. The operations succeeded.
Yeah.
But they failed because the Korean War or the Korean divide, the peninsula, is still there, and it's still a problem. So I don't really see why you make a movie about any of that. Nevertheless, this is Liam Neeson playing Douglas MacArthur. That's pretty cool.
That's good casting.
If you got nothing else but that.
That's good casting.
Special features are sort of making of thing with the little historical documentary. That sort of explains these operations. It's kind of interesting stuff from that point of view. Another Man Will. This is a David E. Talbert film. A David E. Talbert videotaping.
Help me understand the appeal of David E. Talbert, because it seems to me like he is. I don't want to call him the poor man's.
Tyler Perry. I think that's exactly the
is that fair?
It's 100% fair. He and Tyler Perry were on the same bend doing these sort of plays. All through, my wife was in one of these plays. Was in a David E. Talbot play back in 1992 or something like that. Roaming around the country doing these plays, and he and Tyler were doing these plays. Tyler managed to pull off a thing where he had that central character of Medea. Sort of shaped all of his things around that, got his deal with Lionsgate, made all those movies fine. David, on the other hand, never really had that sort of central character, that Medea sort of character.
Yeah.
But these plays are the same. They're all sort of set in the black church. And he would videotape them just like Tyler did, and then he would sell them literally out of the trunk of his car, you know? And actually pull off a real movie career for himself. There are a lot of David E. Talbert films, and they all start with David E. Talbert's, whatever it is.
So is he ever going to make the next step?
I do not see him transitioning to the level that Tyler Perry works at. Not that these, he's operating just fine. He spits these things out left and right. This is one of the filmed plays, though. This is not a feature film. This is a filmed play. I don't know. We shall have to see. Nevertheless, if you like sort of good family, homey entertainment, black folk entertainment, that's one of those movies for you.
All right, so my wife was out of town. I was babysitting the whole time, and while my daughter watched Disney animated movies, I could burn through a whole bunch of PBS docs, and there's a lot of good ones. So here we got a little backlog of PBS docs that are really worth mentioning. Frontline's Confronting ISIS. Absolutely riveting, perfect. Everything you expect from Frontline. It fills in all the blanks because this is such a political football.
Yeah.
And you watch the news, and nobody really tells you anything. They just tell you who says they're going to blow it up and who says they won't.
What language we're going to use to describe them as Islamic terrorist or
Frontline,
blah, 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 blah.
Frontline cuts through all that, and they go right to the heart of the matter. From the Secrets of the Dead series, Graveyard of Giant Beasts. This is a really interesting look at a period in the Earth's history where there was just a lot of really, really big stuff on the Earth, including the 43-foot-long snake known as the Titanoboa. And eventually they discovered that the Titanoboa was not even the master of its own era or domain. There was like a giant crocodile that it had to fight. Can you imagine being the scientists that keep discovering all this stuff?
So Ray Harryhausen was so far ahead of his time.
Yeah, totally. So this is all about the detective work going back 58 million years to kind of try to unearth these ancient grudge matches in fossils. It's pretty interesting stuff. Let's see. My Congo is an installment of Nature that goes to the Congo, which unfortunately most of us know far too much through political conflict and don't really understand what an incredibly gorgeous and beautiful natural wonder it is. And it is very much so. And it will just make you cry how beautiful the Congo is. It is one of the great treasures of the earth, and it's nice to sort of cut through all of the history and the politics and the geopolitics and get to that.
That's a series, right?
Nature is the series.
Nature is the series.
Nature is the series. And then also from Nature is Giraffes, Africa's Gentle Giants. My daughter is nuts for giraffes, loves her giraffe pajamas. And I'll tell you, they are amazing creatures. This is a beautiful, beautiful look at their elegance, their speed, what they eat, all the things that make them just so unusual. And I still remember when we went to the Wild Animal Park in San Diego, and they have giraffes that will just sort of practically put their head inside your tram. They're so gentle. All they want to do is eat leaves. And when they run, it looks like they're running in slow motion, even though they're going about 50 miles an hour.
That sort of long galloping thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. We were just talking about the Korean War. We have the Battle of Chosin, which is one of the amazing survival stories of the Vietnam War, the Korean War. This is just gut-wrenching how these guys who survived this, otherwise known as the Frozen Chosin, and it is really amazing. This is from the American Experience series, and I highly, highly recommend this. If you don't know this story, this is the best way to see it. There are a lot of TV series that have covered this from on the History Channel. I think even that Oliver Stone thing, War Stories.
Oh yeah,
had an installment on this at one point. This is the one to watch. As long as we're on the subject of war, we've also got a couple other ones here. I'm going to pull out USO for the Troops. This is a 75-year look at the USO, which is one of the all-time great institutions for entertaining the troops and just keeping their morale up. Really, really a great look.
I used to love USOs. I was in the Air Force, as you know.
Right.
I was in the Air Force for 6 years, traveling around the world. The USOs were the most wonderful places in the world, no matter where you were. If you're in a military base, you go to most airports in the world, certainly all over the United States, there's a USO. Most people don't think about them or know them. But if you're in the military and you know that you can walk into a USO and you're just going to meet a whole bunch of people who are just like you, it's kind of an extraordinary thing.
Very much so. It's great. I used to hang out at the USO in Marseille in France.
Oh yeah,
and play video games with the troops, and it was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. We have a dramatic thing here from PBS, Royal Wives at War with Emma Davies and Gina McKee, which is the story of King Edward VIII's abdication, which has become a part of a lot of things, including the Oscar-winning King's Speech. That's sort of a part of that as well. So, that's become and, if you watch the Crown on television and a lot of this stuff, so that's always part of the backstory of these things.
Mary,
anyway.
Mrs. Wallace Simpson.
Yes, that too. So this is that, getting inside that story again, the abdication crisis of 1936, and looking at it through Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and the socialite Wallace Simpson, who is the woman at the center of the scandal. Yeah. So, quite a fascinating look at that story. Definitely worth looking at if you're a fan of all of that kind of legacy stuff on television. Royal Wives at War. And just a couple other ones here real quickly. Pearl Harbor into the Arizona. If you're not familiar, the USS Arizona has been kind of it has remained on sunk since Pearl Harbor, and there's a memorial atop it, and it's quite a very solemn but yet reverential place to visit. And this gets into what they have found inside the Arizona and how they have sort of archaeologically unearthed a lot of details about Pearl Harbor and so forth. So it's that is actually quite a good documentary as well. And then we've got I'll just do two more here so we can move on. Actually, I'll do this real quickly. Terrorism in Europe is a Frontline documentary made with ProPublica. We've been watching since 9/11 that most of these attacks have been taking place in Europe, including two in Paris, where and another one in Nice when Mark was there last year in Paris on his birthday. And it's fascinating how it affects Europe, and this is a way of looking at. We know how it's affected us. This looks at it across the ocean, and it's just superb.
Which, of course, is played out in all sorts of European geopolitics, including Brexit.
Oh, absolutely,
including the elections coming up in France soon,
and coming up in Holland,
and in Holland, the Netherlands, right-wing movements,
and in Italy
on the
recently,
rise, and in Italy,
India, Nature's Wonderland. This is a production of BBC Earth. India is amazing. I remember I was rather young when people explained to me there are no tigers in Africa. Yeah. Tigers are in India, you idiot. And I was like, you're calling a 7-year-old kid an idiot. So anyway, what did I know? I watched Ron Ely play. I watched Ron Ely play Tarzan. I didn't. Tigers, lions, they're big cats. They all come from the same place. What do I know? Jaguars. I didn't know they could different parts of the earth. So anyway, India, Nature's Wonderland is beautiful. Everything you'd expect from BBC Earth. Gets into just what an amazingly rich and diverse country India is, and it is. It is really incredible. It's just it's so incredible, and I keep meaning to go there. I have so many Indian friends, and feel like I've betrayed them.
It's really funny though, because I have all these Indian friends. You and I, you're saying people. A lot of it, we have these Indian friends, and I say that, you got to go to India, got to go to India, and they all say to me, "Don't, don't go. What the hell's wrong with you? Don't go to India. You're fine." And I'm thinking, "You should." They're like, "No, you're here. Fine. Go to Canada. Go to Canada."
Yeah, that's funny. It's so many people. The most interesting thing about India I ever heard was from an Indian actress, very famous Indian actress, who said that the people in the West annoyed her because they all thought that India was this like grand spiritual center of gurus, and unless she said, you don't understand, India is a country living in 3 centuries simultaneously. And you can go from one to the other within 20 or 30 minutes. Yeah. And that's something we don't really understand. Yeah. Anyway, and then lastly on Blu-ray, and they always do really great stuff on Blu-ray from PBS. The Story of Cats, documentary from Nature again. I love cats. I grew up with cats. I'm a cat person. I'm not necessarily a dog person. No, I've learned to love dogs. This is 2 episodes, Asia to Africa and into the Americas, that take you into the amazing diversity of species of cats and how they found their way all around the world, and just the nature of them and why they're so weird and why they want to murder people. And it's just, cats. My favorite thing online that goes around every once in a while is is the list of the dog's diary. Day 1, love, 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 and all this. And the cat's diary is day 1, day 357 of my captivity. And it's this, that's really funny stuff. Anyway, so 2 hours, 2 1-hour installments, really, really great stuff. And, so many interesting cats. And I especially love that they get into the ocelot. In the second episode of this, I used to want to pet ocelot until my mother broke the news to me and said, there are some cats you're not allowed to have as a pet. That's one of them.
They'll try to kill you.
But it's little. Yeah, no, but it's little, but it's vicious.
Yeah.
It's a wild cat.
What do I have here? From 1927, a lovely Clara Bow film with a young Gary Cooper and a Children of the Divorce. This is it's interesting because this is 1927, but the subject matter is so extremely contemporary. It's about this woman who marries a guy whom she's in love with. He marries her because he really wants to marry this other woman, but he's afraid that his marriage to the woman that he loves might end in divorce. Because his parents' marriage ended in divorce. This is 1927, where this is the subject, and it's really actually quite striking. And again, an insanely young Gary Cooper. He's
great.
Almost as pretty as Clara Bow in this movie, who was the it girl. Let us not forget.
She was. That's right.
That's who she was. So anyway, there's a whole lot here.
Blu-ray from Flickr Alley.
Yeah, lots of bonus material.
Who is a partner in the streaming endeavor of TCM and Criterion that we love so much.
Filmstruck.
Yeah, that's right. They're a partner in that.
Have you moved over to that yet?
I have. Yeah.
I'm thinking about it. Should I?
If you have the time. Yeah. I mean, it's a $99 subscription for the whole year, and I just thought, you know what, I am totally, because I had 3 months free on it because I was a beta tester, so I had a 3-month free, and then I figured another 2 weeks of the grace period before the new subscription. And I'm like, $99, I'm totally going to get my money's worth out of that if I just watch 10 things. Yeah, and I have already. No, it's worth it to me.
Because I was a Hulu guy because Criterion was at Hulu for the last 4 or 5 years.
Every week, more great new stuff comes up, and there are some interesting TV series on there too from the 80s. So
really,
so it's really worth checking out.
All right, I think I might have to make that play. The most dangerous game from 1932. Another fairly neat movie. Kind of dark and interesting. This is a movie about a guy, one of these sort of crazy hunter guys. He arranges to have this ship shipwrecked on an island so that he can hunt people.
Let me put it this way. If you've ever seen that episode of Gilligan's Island where Rory Calhoun decides that Gilligan is his ultimate prey, this is basically what that's based on. So.
It's kind of Joel McCrea, Fay Wray, again, wonderful actress going all the way back to the silent era. Most dangerous game, along with Gal the Headhunter, which is the second film on this. I don't know that film, but it sounds like a lot of fun. What's neat about these movies, they're only about an hour long. Features back then, 60, 70, 80 minutes long. That was a feature film. We might want to reconsider that. That's not the craziest thing in the world, as we drift toward movies of 3 hours long.
So David Bowie, now dead a year.
Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting memoriam this year.
Yes, it will. Yeah. It sure will. The Oscar memoriam it's going to go on. It deserves to go on. Yeah. For about 25 minutes.
It's one of those years of where you almost would rather just skip it. And because you're going to leave somebody out, and somebody's going to be upset.
And it had to wind up with not just killing Carrie Fisher, but Carrie Fisher and her mom.
And her mom.
Like, oh my gosh, you just horrible, wretched. It starts with David Bowie and Prince, and then it ends with Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds. And I just want to cry. So many people. It's just such a horrible year.
I'm just glad George Michael wasn't in any movies. He wouldn't. He wouldn't.
No.
Okay, good.
No. Good. Anyway, so David Bowie and the Man Who Fell to Earth, the Nicholas Roeg classic, which continues to be just weird and wonderful and bewitching in so many ways, is now out in its ultimate all-time ever edition. This is the one you want to own, Blu-ray, DVD, and digital HD, meaning ultraviolet. It is phenomenal. This is the limited collector's edition. It is big and heavy and just loaded with extra stuff. And if you are a fan of this film, you must own this. Nicholas Roeg is a director who went from being a cinematographer in the 1960s People need to remember he was a camera operator on Lawrence of Arabia, and he was elevated to cinematographer for Dr. Zhivago. He was the original guy who was going to shoot Dr. Zhivago, and after just a little bit, Lean looked at him and said, "You know, Nick, you're just a little too weird. This is not really going to work out." I don't know if that's what he said, but it was something along those lines. And of course, he went on to shoot
Walkabout.
He makes so many great movies as a director. I mean, it really helped him.
The Witches. I mean,
The Witches, so, Man Who Fell to Earth is still one of the ones that he is most remembered for, and this is 3 discs, a Blu-ray with the feature and bonus material, a DVD with the feature, and another DVD with extra bonus material. There's just so much on here, a featurette on the lost soundtracks and interviews and tons and tons and tons of great material, including an interview with Nicholas Roeg and with writer Paul Meyersberg. It's just great, and it is a fantastic transfer. Lionsgate has pulled out all the stops, and you get Ultraviolet as well. It's a win-win-win situation. It's fantastic.
The Man Who Fell to Earth can't go wrong.
Cannot go wrong. And then we're just talking about Criterion. We got 4 fabulous Criterions this week, all across the spectrum. Here's what we got from Criterion. Carol Baker, the wonderful Carol Baker in Something Wild. This is the Jack Garfine film, not to be confused with the Jonathan Demme Something Wild, starring Michelle Pfeiffer. This is from 1961. This is a film I was otherwise completely unfamiliar with, and I am not really familiar with Garfine as a director. Means essentially nothing to me. But the score by Aaron Copland I have heard many times. I've heard suites featuring the music, and it's really interesting. This is a fascinating movie, very much in the 60s vein of movies that are kind of moving toward the 70s. And it almost goes along with a lot of those other movies like Afraid of the Dark and movies about just women who suddenly find themselves in horrible situations, and it examines the psychology of tragedy and trauma and psychosis and whatnot. In any case, this is one of those, and Carol Baker is absolutely amazing as a woman who suffers a sexual assault and then tries to kill herself and is stopped by a guy played by Ralph Meeker. And that puts you into a fascinating kind of journey of discovery and coping, and it's really, really very, very well done. And the Aaron Copland music is just terrific. It's really great. So that is
he made a film called The Strange One, a Ben Gazzara film. It would have been before that film.
Garfine?
Yeah.
Which
I remember that. And Pat Hingle being in that film. I remember that.
This is when I love what Criterion they'll like pick something I've never heard of before.
Yeah. And
just it's like, wow, what a great discovery.
Particularly if it hasn't been treated, because I think he only made 3 or 4 films all total.
And you trust the brand. Yeah. You trust Criterion to kind of show you. And then, of course, they've been, for a while, Criterion has been re-releasing the Fassbinder films that were originally released from the Wellspring library. Wellspring doesn't really exist as a brand anymore. But they were all released, and then they went out of print, and then they were like stupid expensive on eBay and Amazon. And those people are all going to regret it because now they're all coming out again in Blu-ray from Criterion, including Fox and His Friends from 1975, one of the quintessential Fassbinder films about all of the dark edges of love, and it is, it's a tough film to watch. It's very, very, very Fassbinder, very kind of cynical in its way that it looks at society. But
he's in it, which is cool.
And he's in it, yeah.
He's not in, all of it.
No, but he's in this one. And then we also have the all-time classic, His Girl Friday. Again, Cary Grant, but this is Cary Grant at his peak with Rosalind Russell. This is just an absolutely delightful.
How many times have they made that movie?
Well, it was originally the front page.
That's probably second or third, that one.
Yeah,
right?
And then I think they did 2 front page versions, and then His Girl Friday, which is probably the best.
You got that Jack Lemmon movie.
The Jack Lemmon movie, and then which one is my favorite?
Which one are you gonna?
Switching Channels, the TV version with Burt Reynolds. Yeah. And Christopher Reeve. That was, oh my gosh, that was a dreadful, horrible movie. And then lastly, and by the way, the extras on His Girl Friday are just through the roof. They've got the radio adaptation from 1940 and archival interviews, and it's just through the roof. They even have an archival interview with Howard Hawks, which is just fabulous. So it goes on and on and on. You could just live with this Blu-ray forever and never get tired of it. It's so wonderful. The original great screwball comedy. And then I'm so happy they came out with this. This is one of my favorite films from the 1960s, the late 1960s, Black Girl by Ousmane Sembene.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of African cinema. And it is really, truly extraordinary in every way. It is a beautiful, poetic, and very short film. Again, we're talking, this is 59 minutes, Tim.
Yeah.
This is just 59 minutes, but truly, absolutely a beautiful, beautiful film. And it's one of the first films that gets into the issues of African colonialism, European colonialism in Africa.
It's about a black girl who leaves Senegal to go to France to become a housekeeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely poetic. She's a non-actress, and the performance is just absolutely riveting. I'm not going to even try to pronounce her name because I know I'm going to completely destroy it. But it is. I'm going to go ahead and try it. Mbessini Therese Diop. Did I do that? Mbessini Therese. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I see those apostrophes in African names, and they always scare me.
Well, in this one, it's a little African and a little French. I know the French you got.
The Therese I got.
Yeah, with that first name, it's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, but yeah, it is. In terms of looking at the challenges of being a domestic at that particular time, and especially being a domestic is different in different parts of the world. If you're a Filipina working in the Middle East, or if you're, say, a Central American working in America, it's very different from being an African working in France, and especially in the 1960s. So the cultural and the colonial aspects of this are just so fascinating.
It's just not a matter of social class. In the United States, for a long time that had to do with race, but not always, because for a very long time in the early United States, most of the servants and the prestigious homes of the United States anyway were Irish girls.
Yeah.
Were little white girls, little Bridgets. That's what they called them, Bridgets,
Yeah.
And so it wasn't a matter of race, it was a matter of class and culture and some things like that. And then you sort of like work your way forward to the sort of black help of many houses in movies like The Help and things like that. And even then, and people don't really get that really wasn't always a matter of race either.
No.
It's much more complicated than that,
The one thing, having lived in France, that and I'll go to a different conversation too. Years ago, my father, who was who was fought in France in World War I, and yes, World War I. I did say World War I. I know I've talked about that on this show before, but my father was in France in World War I, and later made friends with a woman on a train who became a very dear friend of the family, who was born the product of a French soldier and a Vietnamese mother during the Indo-Chinese period. And she still lives in Paris. I still communicate with her. She's a wonderful woman. And I remember he told me once when he was visiting her that I think, but it was before he married my mother. So we're talking about the late 1950s, okay? And he was visiting her there. And this is the late 1950s. And my father, who's from Kentucky, is with her in cafes, and here are black men wearing berets and overcoats and kiss on the cheek, and with white French girls and the whole thing. And it was like late 50s. This was not what you see in America.
Yeah.
And my father said to her, he said, this is really, this is not the way it is in our country. And she laughed. The woman who's biracial, by the way, and completely assimilated into her culture. And her answer was, our blacks are not like your blacks. The meaning being, our relationship with all these different peoples is a colonial relationship, whereas yours has the problematic issue of hundreds of years of slavery.
The peculiar institution of slavery. Yes, a different dynamic.
It's a different dynamic.
And in the 1950s, our blacks, meaning our blacks here, were going to France.
Like Gordon Parks.
And Gordon Parks. And all this,
And because they were welcomed there, this gets into the La La Land thing, where I've heard a lot of people make the criticism, it's a jazz movie with all these white people, and why is it that the guy who's the jazz purist is the white guy, and the guy who's the revolutionary has to be the black guy? I'm like, no, let me explain something to you. Jazz today, do you know who preserves the legacy of traditional jazz?
Yeah.
It's people like Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Do you know where it was preserved? It was preserved in France, When you look at the movies that had scores that went and got
Around midnight,
they're all French directors that did it.
Yeah.
Louis Malle in Elevator to the Scaffolds.
Well, and certainly, look, in black culture, black American culture, right?
Yeah.
Black folks will talk to you about this. To admit this, me being one, I can do it. We have not embraced our specific art form, jazz, in black American culture, the way the rest of the world has writ large, frankly.
Yeah.
In Asian countries, in Japan, and Vietnam for that matter, you will find all sorts of music files who are jazz aficionados.
Yeah.
You will, if you roam around most of the urban black cores of America, you won't find all that many 15, 16, 18, 20, 25, 35. You got to get to my age. You got to get. I'm 55. You got to get to my age before you start finding black folks who are aficionados of jazz. And I come from a father who was a jazz drummer. Yeah, I mean, the connection has to be that strong, a sort of Marsalis family sort of connection, before you start finding jazz popping up as an ordinary sort of thing in the black community.
And so to bring that full circle, and by the way, that also reminds me of the fact that it's Jewish emigres and Asian emigres who are the virtuosos for classical music, which is a form that they were all once completely culturally shut out of. So these are all interesting dynamics, and that's where it gets interesting in France.
Well, it's because you brought up the La La Land thing, which, by the way, went back to Whiplash too. There were some of the similar attacks on Damien Chazelle. Yeah. You make a white kid making a movie about jazz drummers and all that. Is he usurping all that? Yeah. And I got to tell you, I've been poking back at that over the course of this awards season. I don't want to hear that crap.
Well, most of the people saying that are not jazz fans themselves.
My point exactly.
But it is this, to bring this back full circle. When I lived in France, that was the thing I most noticed, which was that it was not about race, even though these are all different races. It's about the colonial relationship to these countries, which means that Indochina versus North Africa versus Black Africa were all treated differently. And the assimilation in France was always much better from Black non-Islamic and from Indo-Chinese immigrants and former colonies.
That's the Vietnamese and the Cambodians.
Versus any part of Africa that was Islamic. That's where
Algeria, Morocco.
And so that's why. And so that's where and all of this stuff, by the way, Black Girl deals with in a quick, brisk hour, and yet an incredibly efficient and poetic way. If you are not familiar with the work of Ousmane Sembène, this is the film to begin discovering what an amazing visionary filmmaker he was at that time, and continues to be through his entire body of work. It's a very interesting
thing, though, as we sit here, and our first black president has just left office after 2 terms in office.
Yeah,
I can guarantee you right now that a native-born black person could not be elected to the presidency of France.
No, not in a million years.
Certainly not today. Certainly not today. So as much as we think about the problems that we have in America vis-a-vis race, and all that kind of stuff. Oh no. And it's really interesting too, because there's something. We're not getting too far off track here. There's something about the legacy of slavery specifically, right, that I think leads us to a different place than that legacy of colonialism led the French. For one thing, because of the legacy of slavery here, Black Americans have actually taken ownership of their citizenship in this country, right? So it's like a claim on the thing. No, I'm an American. Yeah. I own that for real. I pick cotton. Yeah. I'm an American. As opposed to all of those colonial, those refugees from colonies or whatever, who quite never really have taken ownership of their French citizenship, even though sometimes they run 3 generations deep.
That's very true.
But they just the ownership of being French isn't there yet, and it's a weird thing that came out of the peculiar institution of slavery, but it's a thing that gives us ownership. It's ours.
These are the fruits of history.
Yeah.
So
interesting stuff.
With that, and then let's see, we got a few more things to kind of round out as time runs short. Let me hit the 4 from Twilight Time. Twilight Time, like Criterion, is something we look forward to every single month. They just always pick such interesting stuff. I just continue to salute what they do at Twilight Time. Stanley and Iris.
Yeah.
A movie I did not give a lot of great credit to in 1990.
One of the first films that I ever wrote a professional film review of is Martin Ritt's Stanley and Hours. It might be the second one. Actually, I think you assigned me to... I know. You sent me to review that film in Westwood at the Village.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
I think I remember that, actually. This film has actually aged really well for me, I have to be honest. Nick Redman, who's one of the partners in Twilight Time, does the audio commentary along with Julie Kirgo. They've done really great work on other films, and this is one where they just absolutely nail it. Everything they say, I agreed with. Also includes an isolated music track, as they often do. And, to pair Robert De Niro with Jane Fonda under the direction of Martin Ritt is something that... I don't know why I took it for granted at the time. Maybe I was just hoping for a different kind of Martin Ritt movie. But you know what? It is a really well-acted and a really sensitive film with two amazing performers.
It sort of harkens back to Norma Ray. Robert De Niro plays this man who's extremely brilliant sort of mechanically, but he can't read. He's illiterate.
Yeah.
And he meets this woman who's Jane Fonda. I remember my one criticism of that movie at the time. It's about 1990 or so, 89,
it's 1990.
And I remember Jane Fonda being so beautiful in that movie, and she's playing like a waitress or a cook or something like that. I saw a real blue collar kind of lady, and it's kind of like Sally Field did in Norma Ray. And I'm looking at Jane Fonda in this movie, and she just looks fantastic. I'm just like, wow, God, you're beautiful. But I just don't think I believe you've been washing dishes all day lately. But that was my only complaint about that one.
And speaking of Jane Fonda, also from Twilight Time, we've got the lovely Comes a Horseman with James Caan, Jane Fonda, and Jason Robards. This is one of those 70s era westerns. It's a little bit revisionist. 1978, kind of late for the western era. This is a bit when it's starting to kind of on its last legs. Directed by Alan Pakula, Alan J. Pakula of All the President's Men. And, the plot is basically one we've heard a million times. I mean, you got, Jane Fonda and James Caan have a ranch, and Jason Robards is the land baron who wants them off. He wants their land. And these are all great actors doing their best work. And we think we've heard that plot before. But you know what? Somehow in Pakula's hands, it becomes almost like a political commentary. It almost becomes a contemporary thing. So it's, this was produced by Winkler and Chardoff, coming off of Rocky. When they were doing all their best work. The best thing about this is the cinematography. Gordon Willis absolutely kills it. Beautiful.
The Prince of Darkness.
Prince of Darkness. You know my Gordon Willis story, right? Did I ever tell you? Because I was supposed to be writing the book on the restoration of The Godfather at one point.
I remember. Yeah.
And that of course never happened because Paramount just couldn't get their act together and cooperated. If you go into a Paramount office and say, "Do you mind cooperating and helping me have access to all of your files and your photos and your things?" Oh, really? Maybe I don't know where they are. Okay, fine. It's just horrible. But I sat in on a timing session on a restoration correction session with Robert Harris, who was overseeing it, and the guy, the engineer there, and then the Alan Daviau was sitting with him.
Cinematographer.
Yes, and Alan Daviau was communicating on the phone with Gordon Willis in New York. Because Gordon Willis is old and isn't going to travel, and he's not going to Skype or anything like that. And so Daviau was literally Willis's eyes in the room. And it was extraordinary to hear Willis ask a question and Daviau give him the answer and just go, that is amazing that you trust his eyes to communicate to you over the phone what you expect to see. That's just amazing.
Yeah. That's a real language.
And I sat in on a day of that, and it was amazing to hear the voice. So anyway, Gordon Willis, such an amazing figure. And then a couple of to finish off, a weird one and a classic. The weird one is The Mad Magician in 3D. Twilight Time, like Criterion, oftentimes throws us a curveball, and boy, is this a curveball! I didn't even know this movie existed. This is from 1954. Which was another 3D craze that died. There's a Three Stooges short on this as well, which is kind of a nice bonus, and an audio commentary by David Del Valle and Stephen Peros that really helps fill in a lot of the blanks about this very strange 3D movie with Vincent Price that was completely off of my radar. So anyway, as a 3D movie, I can't say that it's really all that spectacular, but it's short. I'll say that. It's about 70 minutes long, and it's certainly a curiosity. The one that I cannot say enough about is one of my all-time favorite movies with just two beautiful people, Two for the Road. Frankly, it could have just been Audrey Hepburn in One for the Road, and I would have been fine with it. But in 1967, Stanley Donen directed just an absolute charmer with Albert Finney and Audrey Hepburn in Two for the Road, and it has one of the all-time great Henry Mancini scores, which is featured here as an isolated music track. Kirgo and Redman give us another great audio commentary. There's also the original commentary by Stanley Donen, which they got a hold of. And I'm sorry, this movie is just beautiful. You just want these people to just, Frederic Raphael wrote it, and you just want these two people to just be on the screen forever. It
20, maybe 25 years ago at UCLA, Stanley Donen used to teach this class Saturday mornings at UCLA, and I worked at UCLA for many years as a projectionist, and I projected that movie one Saturday morning for Stanley for the class that he was teaching. This movie, I projected an actual film, 35mm film, that I had to set up and run, and he talked about it all the way through the movie. It was really quite funny. He never stopped talking the whole time.
Just the ultimate road trip movie with two of the most beautiful people ever, shot by Christopher Shallis with so much glowing, beautiful. It is just resonant. And it so captures the '60s, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This, along with A Man and a Woman, takes me back in ways like nothing else does. It's just like, there I am again. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. Absolutely amazing.
Quite astounding. I got a few over here.
Let's knock out a couple, and then we'll call it quits.
Some old school stuff here, including the Toll Gate 1920 Lambert Hiller film. William S. Hart again playing a bandit, playing a cowboy. He was a bandit. He got betrayed by his friends. He had to go back and get his revenge here. So interesting sort of mid-silent era film. Also on this exact same disc, His Bitter Pill, which is also from 19. This is a little bit. This is 1916. This is really early stuff.
Real early stuff.
19,
and these are DVD-Rs.
Yeah, from the Black Hawk Films collection, which you might know a little bit more about.
Flicker Alley and David Shepard, who we gave an award to a couple of years ago. The Black Hawk Films is his collection, and he's working with Flicker Alley now. He used to work with Image before Robert Johnson bought it, and so now he does all this stuff. These are basically reissues through Flicker Alley. Very nice.
Really, really neat stuff. Native Land, 1942. This is Paul Robeson, the great Paul Robeson, who we don't talk about enough in any context, really. Narrating the mix.
He was Sidney Poitier before Sidney Poitier.
Sidney Poitier. There you go. Narrating a series of dramatizations related to the Bill of Rights, which were under attack in the 1930s, and people were worried about the Communist Party and so doing some things. So anyway, Leo Hurwitz and Paul Strand's Native Land, very beautiful. Interesting. Little film from over there. What else do we have here? Doc Savage.
Yeah.
Man of Bronze.
It's on Blu-ray.
Michael Anderson. Ron Ely. I think you mentioned Ron Ely a few minutes ago from the old Tarzan.
They're remaking this. Did
you Get out. That? No.
You did not know this?
I did not know this.
Dwayne Johnson.
Technically quite accurate.
Man of Bronze. Well, the thing is, the Doc Savage is a weird character. I mean, he's a weird comic book hybrid of a lot of things. But he is supposed to be sort of a very, very bronzed, bulletproof guy with just thick locks of blonde hair.
Yeah. A Stan Lee character, right?
No. It was outside of Stan Lee. These were like kind of graphic novel-y comics. They were their own thing. Anyway, this movie is so campy it's beyond all comprehension. Directed by Michael Anderson, who really. Yeah, had done a lot of interesting films leading up to this, including the Oscar winner Around the World in 80 Days.
Yeah.
But this film is so campy. All I remember is the song. I remember the song so well. every time the chorus would chime in, Doc Savage, Doc Savage. He'd do something heroic, and then the chorus would kick in. It's hysterical, this movie. Anyway, Blu-ray, Doc Savage from the Warner Archive Collection. Cool. Very well. Well done.
Logan's Run.
All right. With that, I think we are done. Tim, thank you so much.
Tell Mark I kept the chair warm for him.
I will do that indeed. So we will be back next week with Mark, and we'll hear all of his stories, and hopefully things went well for him in the City of Lights. Meanwhile, we'll also keep monitoring all the Oscar stuff, and then I will plug our Oscar show appearance at the
coming up soon.
That's
the Ace
Theater downtown.
Yep,
so
Tim
and I will be joining the rest of the Film Week crowd at the Ace Theater in downtown Los Angeles on an upcoming Film Week show. We're doing that on Sunday. 1 week before the Oscars.
Yeah, I think the 20th maybe.
I think it is. So
like that,
I will fill everyone in. I'll certainly put it on the Facebook page. All right, with that, Tim, thank you for being here for the last few weeks.
Fun.
And we will see everybody next week.